taken us all this time for our guests from UCLA to train everyone to stay standing for as long as possible.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Perginsky, Cabinet Secretary for the New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department. And I want to welcome you and just introduce some of our distinguished guests who are with the governor and I here today for this historic announcement. I'll start on our right with Governor Janelle Roybal from the Pueblo Poake. Thank you. Governor Thora Padilla, President, sorry, excuse me.
It's gonna get you.
I know. President Thora Padilla from the Mescalera Apache tribe up here. Senator Michael Padilla.
Reporting for duty at the Padilla Caucus.
Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales. Dr. Neil Halfon, and I would like to just tell you a little bit about Neil. He is a distinguished professor,
I'm happy that you have to read that.
Thank you. He is the founding director of the University of California, Los Angeles Center for Healthier Children, Families, and Communities, and a distinguished professor of pediatrics at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA. Dr. Halfon has helped shape U.S. health reform since the late 1990s, and he conducted data and policy analysis that contributed to the creation of the state child health insurance program in '97 and has advised on original federal evaluations and co-chaired the first National Consensus Conference on improving child health care quality. He has also pioneered life course health development models, directing federally funded life course research, intervention, and translational research network. Most recently, he has developed the 3.0 Health System Transformation Framework that's guiding U.S. and global efforts to shift from a treatment-focused 2.0 system with one designed to optimize equitable health development for all, and that will make sense when you hear his remarks later. Also, we are joined by Joe Guillen, Executive Director of the New Mexico School Board Association, and Representative Charlotte Little here in the New Mexico Legislature. We also have some wonderful guests here in the room with us that I do want to recognize. Kate Noble is here as a Santa Fe School Board member and also President and CEO of Growing Up New Mexico, a nonprofit that provides early childhood and family-centered programs in Santa Fe and Rio Arriba counties. We also have Sandra Carpenter, who's Executive Director of Christina Kent Early Childhood Center. Just last week, she opened a new infant and toddler center, the first time since 1938 that the center has been providing infant toddler care. They are the center in New Mexico, opening in 1919. So thank you, Sandra, for being here. We also have Bridget Dixon from the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce, Gabrielle Ubales, from Executive Director of New Mexico Voices. Yes, there she is. Teresa Madrid, Interim Executive Director from Partnership for Community Action, the grassroots advocacy organization. Michelle Quintana, a board member of the New Mexico Head Start Association. Alicia Borrego, Executive Director of the New Mexico Association for the Education of Young Children. And I see Ivy Dell from OLE, Organizing in the Land of Enchantment, a grassroots advocacy organization. We're so thrilled to have everybody here for this historic announcement. It has taken everybody to come together to meet this moment. And I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful governor.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see folks. I hope you had a delightful fiesta weekend. I did, so it's even better on this lovely Monday morning. So we're going to do two announcements, and I'm going to do it a little bit backwards. The backwards part is you might be wondering why we have folks from UCLA at the table today as we're talking about early childhood education. One of the real tough issues that we manage and navigate and ask for policy support from the legislature continually is New Mexico has long been a state that's challenged by the right performance outcomes and the right supports for families in K through 12 in particular. We have long debated how much and when to start pre-K programming, and when I was elected doctor in 2018 and started in 2019, the debate about why you do pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds was long gone. But how you fund it, how much, how fast, was still a debate in the legislature. And in 2019, I took my then 3-year-old granddaughter, Avery, down to the floor for the Senate Finance hearing and sat her on my lap, and she was a very busy 3-year-old, and was able to say to then Chairman John Arthur Smith, I'm ready to start learning and not just coloring. And in that moment, the Senate Finance Committee, I think unanimously, put in the budget $320 million to initiate our work in creating a robust pre-K program in New Mexico. Now, we only ended up getting $300 million because COVID, we were sweeping some money. Everyone had to give up some. But what I really want to say is that Elizabeth Graginski, who we recruited from Washington, D.C., came to New Mexico believing in the promise that the legislators and leaders and this lieutenant governor had long aspired to make a reality here. She believed that the tools would come and the resources, that she could come into a state that she didn't know very well. And New Mexicans are a little prickly about that. We like everyone to be part, we're all cousins. So if you're not in the cousin lineup, it's a little bit tougher for you to stand up programming. Well, Secretary Graginski, Lieutenant Governor Morales, the leaders that you will hear from, including Senator Padilla and Representative Little, long been stalwart champions of early childhood education. And that led also to the creation of the department, which you will also hear is becoming the model for states who are serious about putting together comprehensive services. What you're going to hear about from UCLA, and I won't steal their thunder, is unequivocal evidence that this is working and that New Mexico is turning the tide. I will steal your headline, that the blueprint for education in America is happening right here in New Mexico. And that confidence is critical, not just to policymakers who expect us to be able to demonstrate where their money goes, but also for families who have long waited for us to be able to make movement in the entire education system. But if we have families that didn't have the right stability interventions and supports, and we don't have a strong pre-K system, our kiddos get lost in kindergarten, first, second, and we all know, sir, by the time they're in 3rd grade, their reading levels in particular are so far behind that we spend the rest of the time in K through 12 chasing the promise of quality public education for families. Now, that's not what we're here today to do, but I'm still very happy about the Literacy Institute, very happy about the literacy tutoring, and very happy that a number of places, and you will hear about that today, have turned the tide, and we see double-digit increases in literacy performance, and still are seeing increases. They're not as robust for every achievement or performance outlook that we want, but they are coming, and they won't come without the supports that you're going to hear unequivocally. We have the proof to show that these are quality programs. And then 2, my announcement all by myself is that we are starting right now the process. I don't like this part, it's rulemaking, but here's what it is. We are announcing today that New Mexico is the first in the nation again to announce universal access, free childcare for every New Mexico family in the state of New Mexico. That starts in New Mexico. And I will tell you that there are so many people across the country that say that that's impossible. Not impossible. In fact, it is the backbone of creating a system of support for families that allow them to work, to go to college, to do all of the things that they need to do, to continue to lift New Mexico out of poverty, and to provide the best early starts for every single child in every single New Mexico family. And we're challenged by that here still. And these are the underpinnings of changing that for generations to come instead of being behind that 8 ball, which is where every governor, for every time we've had an election, has had to start in child well-being, early childhood education, and we've changed that all today. And I want to talk to you about a family. I've got a couple, Nathan and Hannah, and we should thank them because they're in public education, they're teachers. Family of 3 living here in Santa Fe, which is no easy trip. Santa Fe is expensive. They have a 16-month-old son. They teach at Santa Fe High School and El Camino Real. Their income for a family of 3 is $133,000 a year. Their child care costs are $1,200 a month. They just barely don't meet that 400% of poverty threshold, which is how we designed it. We took away all the co-pays. Remember that announcement? First in the country to do that. We raised the threshold of free child care to 400% of poverty. First state in America to do that, because you have to build access, right? And we have to ask the legislature and thank you for money. We have to make sure that our trust fund is healthy so that we know we can keep funding it. We had to know that voters would vote to allow us to use a poquito pinch of our land grant permanent fund to make sure it's always creating the opportunities to support universal child care. That was always the vision. Took us this long to realize it, but by golly, we did. They will tell you that this is life-changing for them. It's the difference between being able to stay in Santa Fe and stay as educators. It's the difference between moving up into the next affordable house. It's the difference between ever being able to go on vacation. It's the difference between making it when inflation in this country remains too high, particularly in the areas of utilities and food. The things that families have to raise their family. $1,200 a month in this effort goes away in short order for this family. It's a game changer for them. And it's exactly what we want for every family. The point that I really want to make, and we're going to hear from a lot of folks, is one, we've heard from everyone in the country that this is exactly where they want to go, but they don't know how to do it. Two, if we didn't have the land grant permanent fund, and to the legislature, if we don't have the trust fund, it's not sustainable. If we don't have a little bit of money out of the permanent fund, and we don't have the trust fund, and you don't make appropriations to this priority, it doesn't stay. Stay the course. Otherwise, you tell families like Nathan and Hannah's that their dedication to public education is insufficient to meet the income requirements and supports for their family. It's wrong. And if you don't do that, you don't have the wage growth in this industry for childcare and for pre-K. And remember that these are industries that are professional, they're the brain architects of these little ones, and for far too long in America, we have treated these professionals as babysitters and even called them such, paying them minimum wage or far below the compensation levels for professionals that we've entrusted to create the neuroscience opportunities and outcomes for little ones. So let me tell you where we're ranked with this effort today, because we've done both, invested in the infrastructure and invested in our little ones and their families. Who wants to guess where New Mexico is in wage growth? You're cheating, Senator. Sir, in New Mexico, everyone always guessed last, which really is starting to get on my nerves, because we are not last in so many important categories. Number one, we are number one in early childhood in wage growth rates in America. And just to give you some perspective, Colorado is 27th and Arizona is 11th. And that is to spur them to try to out-wage growth us, because we want to be a race to the top, but to point out how far New Mexico has come in such a short period of time. So last thing, We couldn't have done it without the people at this table, without the people in this room, without the leadership of Secretary Krasinski and her team, without the incredible leadership of the Lieutenant Governor, who also spearheaded this work as a senator, as an educator, as a coach, as a community member. His life's work is here, and he's created an opportunity for New Mexico families that can't be met, not today, by anybody else, anywhere else in the country. I'm forever grateful, Lieutenant Governor. This is the work that you were made for and built for, and you've realized it today. And what a powerful team we have become. So with that, Secretary, I'm going to give it back to you,
Thank you
for the rest of the remarks. But again, number one, this is how you change education. And I might add for UCLA, we're also number 2 with college growth in terms of enrollees, and number 1 for first-time college freshmen in the country. And that's going to stay as well. All right.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
And I want to recognize our Secretary of Higher Ed, Stephanie Rodriguez, and our Secretary of Indian Affairs Department, Josette Monette. So thank you for being here. Dr. Neil Halfon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. And again, thank you for inviting me to be here with you. And it's been a great, not only a great pleasure, but a great learning experience for me and our team as we've been working over the last several years. This isn't my first trip to New Mexico. I've been coming here for the last 20 years, sort of following what's been going on and seeing the progress, especially that you've made over the last 6 years with the blueprint. I just want to echo what the governor was saying, that 35 years ago there was a sea change that happened in the scientific field where early childhood went from a thing that you paid some attention to and have programs that were nice if you could do it, to having to be essential, because we realized how important early childhood was in terms of its long reach throughout our lives, and essential for people to be able to develop and move forward. And the neuroscience changed all that, and there was a report from the National Academy of Science called Neurons to Neighborhoods, and that report's important in terms of what you're doing here, because it connected the dots between what's happening early in children's brains to the places that they live, not just their families, their places, and it created a whole child, whole family, whole community approach to moving early childhood forward. The entire ecosystem that needed to move forward for children to succeed. And the federal government picked up on that, had states try to put in place, gave them a little bit of money. Can you guys coordinate, play nice with each other in different departments? It helped things, it raised the level of awareness, but it didn't make the kinds of changes that needed to be made. And there's been lots of efforts at states and cities around the country, but New Mexico is the first place to put a blueprint in place to take all of what we've learned over the last several years of what works, what should be there, and systematically put it in place so that you have a system, an ecosystem of early childhood supports that are really important because they embrace the whole child, they support families, and they scaffold communities in ways so that everybody is part of this process moving forward. And so this portfolio of strategies, I'm telling you as an outsider, is really important. It's a really big deal in terms of moving forward. It's what we'd like to see as a developmental scientist. We'd like to see every place to have this kind of scaffolding and this kind of thing in place. And it goes beyond, what you're doing goes beyond the traditional way of just looking at kids who are failing and trying to bring up the tail of the curve, continue to sort of do it that way, and really realizing if we want to have the biggest bang for the buck and be more efficient using money in the best way, we want to shift the whole curve for all children. We want it all to work and move forward. And that's what you're doing and putting in place. We were asked to come in and help measure what was going on. And there are lots of measures that are out there so we can measure individual children. I'm a pediatrician, so I did lots of developmental screenings on kids. We have instruments to do that, and that lets me as a pediatrician work with, you know, Johnny or Juan or Jamal, whoever the kid is, and sort of help them and tell the parents, you can do this and do that. But that's at one child at a time if you get them and catch them and do it. What we brought was not an individual measure, but a population measure of all the children. And so that we could look at their physical health, emotional, social, emotional, cognitive, and language development, a whole child picture of how the children were doing. And not measure it just individually, but measure it at a community level, at a neighborhood level, at a state level, so that you have, you know what, not the individual levers you're going to do, but what you're going to do at a population level. What do you have to shift in playing this 3D chess game of working with children, working with families, and working at communities at the same time and moving forward? So what we did is we were in 116 districts, 441 schools, 1,380 classrooms, and we measured close to 19,000 kindergartners in 2004 in New Mexico. 2024, sorry. I started doing this stuff a long time ago.
I can relate to that in so many different ways.
So, and what we found was that 73% of the children in all these categories were on track, meaning that they were proficient in moving in the right direction. 12% were at risk, and about 10 to 12% were vulnerable. And this is in keeping with where kids around the country are doing. No, clearly not any worse, and in many areas much better. But we didn't stop just with measuring the children and how they were doing. We measured the context in which they lived. And so we measured for all the children the economic, social, and educational adversity that they live in. And what we found is kids in New Mexico live in a lot more adverse circumstances than kids in the rest of the country. So they face bigger headwinds than everybody else because of long-term issues that have to do with economic, social, and educational issues, all the things you're trying to address in this sort of ecosystem approach to changing things. And so, but even though they faced greater headwinds, what we found was that there were 27% of the communities where they were doing much better than you would have expected, that you were showing resilience in a sense, where the community was producing children with much better results than you would have expected given their economic and social circumstance. And that's really important because it's a really hopeful sign that things are going on in places, that people are coming together and working together and moving things forward. And it's better than what we've seen around the country. So that, you know, the other places, about 23, 24% of the communities, and you were at 27%. And I think it's going to move even further forward. So my takeaways for you all is that, you know, New Mexico, enlightened by these years of scientific work, guided by this kind of neurons to neighborhood approach that the National Academy of Science had put forward, and Elizabeth brought all the pieces together here to do. You're moving forward a whole child, whole family, whole community approach. You realize that it takes a village, it takes a city, it takes a pueblo, it takes a state to raise your children and come at it. You're the first place to implement a statewide comprehensive actionable data program on your children. You've turned the lights on, which are really important so that everybody can see. And this data now lives not with the secretary or the governor, it lives with these communities and the coalitions that have this data and can use it and to move forward an agenda that they think is important. Empowering the village to move forward, You have 73% of your children are on track. And you're moving forward, shifting from a deficit vulnerability way of thinking about things to really looking at how the resilience and supports that children have and need to move forward. So I think that, I'm the outsider coming in to say, this is a national model. I know I've been in most of the other states. I worked on all the state early childhood things over the years. And your blueprint is a blueprint that other states should be following. I was just bugging the governor before we came in. I said, please talk to my governor about what you're doing. Because I'd like to see California and other states going in this direction. Because you put the governance, innovation, investment, and action together in a way that's really important and key. And we're hoping that as we continue to measure this over time, you'll continue to see the upward sweep, and you'll see this play forward in your third grade reading scores and as things move forward. Because we know the EDI, the measure we do, the research shows that it predicts what happens later. So I hope that is, sort of brings you up to date on what we've been doing.
Well, I think that's universal childcare is really big. It's big. No one in America has achieved that. But it's just as big in the context of announcement that we have the data to show that we're more than on the right track. So you guys should give yourselves a round of applause because you're the people that did it.
Yeah.
So, right on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Halfon. And now we'd like to hear some brief remarks from Governor Roybal.
Good morning, everyone. Amazing day for the state of New Mexico, and hopefully, like Governor Grisham said, to spread to the surrounding states and further as well. For Powhatan, and I'm sure most tribes, we all struggle with our families and their children getting the resources that they need and the education they need, and I think this is just an amazing start to getting all of our children where they need to be, helping our parents to assist them with those needs, and just collaboratively working together is the most important part, because I think that unity isn't always there, and it's just I'm very proud and happy to see us growing and moving together, united, and making sure it gets done. So
Can I brag about all of the pueblos and all of our sovereign nations?
Yes,
And we've
please
only
do.
got but look, I predict that as states are really struggling to manage their cultural identities with their families and language, and here where, like California, there's a multitude of languages. Many of ours are ancient languages that aren't even in writing, all verbal. We're losing those languages. We're devastated by that reality. These sovereign nations are leaning into full immersion, childcare and early childhood education in languages of origin. And I predict that New Mexico, which is Spanish is our official language, probably not a very fair assessment in our Constitution. Let me just apologize to you, but it's there. Better that you've got a bilingual Constitution than not, I think. But our sovereign nations are really doing the work, and they're engaging their elders, make sure that that language immersion can work. So we're going to see a cohort of families and kids that are bilingual and competent in their original languages, thereby preserving thousands of years of history and wellness and tradition in the state that we were at the risk and still are. Right? It's precarious, but I predict that's going to take hold in the same way. And what does the neuroscience say about a brain that can do multiple languages? Sky's the limit. Good for the brain. And so it's amazing. And I just thought you should know that all of them are leaning in, and this legislature is dedicating money to build the bricks and mortar and to do the wage investments for staff. Yes. And it's incredible. So you didn't give yourself enough credit, you're fired.
You know, just a
Yeah.
comment, children, and especially little children, are like sponges, and they soak it all in, and they feel that. They feel that everybody cares. They feel that their ancestors care, and it sort of, it pulls them along. So it's not just what we read to them and stuff, but it's all of that that's so important.
Is it age and little? Because if it's just little, then Joe Guillen and I could learn a new language. You're welcome.
President Padilla?
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here to hear this fantastic program being rolled out. For Mescalero, it is very timely for us. We've been going through budgets for our, trying to develop our FY 2026 budget. And we did speak about this very thing of our daycare programs and how we have these people we trust with our littlest children, and we can't pay them what they should be paid. And I really think this is huge. I mean, providing more daycare for our low-income families, but also to be able to pay our providers starting at $18 an hour, that's amazing. It really is. And it is exactly as the governor mentioned. We are in the process of completing our Indian Education Act implementation plan, and this is exactly the sort of thing we wanted to do, is to bring the immersion programs into the early childhood program. So thank you so much. It is so timely, and it answers so many needs. We do have 3 care facilities on the reservation, and right now one of them is in terrible shape. So that's why I say, as far as pay for our providers, but a building, oh my goodness, we'll be one of the first to apply.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to be building a bunch more, and that's why Mr. Guillen is here, and that's why Senator Padilla and Representative Little are here. We're gonna want some of that. Don't sweep any capital for early childhood or education.
Okay, thank you. Senator Padilla?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this announcement today. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Madam Secretary, and President and Governor, and Mr. Guillen, and Representative, and Doctor. This is just another terrific example of New Mexico taking our children seriously. Today, with this announcement, I don't want it to be lost on the fact that every New Mexico child, regardless of where they come from, where they were born, who their family was, how long they've been here, how short they've been here, just obtained the golden ticket from prenatal all the way through to a phenomenal job in their future and a career for their future. This governor and this lieutenant governor and this secretary and myself and many others focused on prenatal through age 5 with creating the department. But then even beyond that, the universal free breakfast and lunch, K through 12, any child that really wants a higher education and wants to take that part of their life has that now. This really is a major, major announcement today. I don't know if people realize that. This opens up over almost 13,000 additional slots for childcare. That focus is not just about watching the kiddo, it's also taking them into the next period of their life and prepares the raw material, if you will, to go on into K through 12 and to get the education that all of our children so badly need. They go on, we create additional associates, bachelor's, doctoral degrees, specialists, you name it. That, at the end of the day, in my opinion at least, is going to create a workforce that has higher quality for our products and services, better throughput and customer service for our products and services and all that. It's going to make New Mexico extremely attractive to build your business here. It's going to make New Mexico extremely attractive to come here and raise your family. There's no bit of this continuum that is going to be missed now. And I think that those additional almost 13,000 slots really is that golden ticket for every New Mexico child, period. And I couldn't be more excited when I got this call from the governor last week and we had this conversation and she asked me to be here. I was speeding, Governor, up I-25. So I did not want to miss this meeting.
He's not kidding. This I know about Senator Padilla.
But I will say that, and again, without these early steps, are we going to see that continuum of success for our children? And it's going to reduce things like child abuse. It's going to reduce things like,
Childhood poverty.
childhood poverty, domestic violence, alcoholism, all of this stuff, because folks are finally going to have a true hope and opportunity for success. And that's exactly what this decision and this does today. So I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this announcement and all of these wonderful people that are here. And again, I also want to give credit to our Lieutenant Governor, who really began to spearhead a lot of this when he was in the state Senate. I enjoy working with him as well. So thank you very much, Governor.
Senator, I also thank you. I want to give you a shout out and Secretary Rodriguez on a point that you just made. Like all states, New Mexico suffers to get the workforce developed. We need more doctors, so we're looking for pediatricians, nurses, practitioners, first responders, educators. Well, look no further than Western University and CNM and the work of Secretary Rodriguez. The #1 career, requests are to be early childhood educators. So if you have a wage growth ladder, if you have free opportunity scholarships, if you're building the infrastructure and supporting families, you know what people really want in addition to, I need to be able to make it where I'm not struggling in that way, but I also want to do a job that fulfills me. I want a career in education. I want to be around these little ones. But when we ask you to provide that kind of commitment or dedication and live a life of poverty, we're asking for an awful lot. And then they can't raise their kids in the way they're dedicated to helping another family. And we literally ask our educators to live in poverty. We ask our police officers to live in poverty. We ask our firefighters. I mean, it's outrageous. And this is a state that in 2019 said, not anymore. And are we there everywhere? No. But we are moving at lightning fast speeds to create wage, not just equity, but equality in the state for the kinds of professional jobs that every New Mexican wants and is capable of doing. And again, it's not this announcement, but when you now look like you're going to be the quantum and fusion capital of the world, this tells everyone around the globe that we're making the right critical investments for the future. So thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Little?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm just so proud to be here today, and I'm thrilled with this announcement. It's been years in the making. I was on the board of New Mexico Voices for Children, and this always rose to the top of our list of the issues that we wanted addressed at legislatures, and this was so many years ago. I'm just thrilled, beyond thrilled. The other piece too is I also have 2 stories to share with you today. As part of it is Moms Helping Moms. When my daughter was born, it was really agonizing to have to make a decision to leave her at about 5 months old. So as many of you in the room know, we search, really, really take good care to search for someone who's going to provide wonderful care and safe care for our children. Well, we found that woman. She was a woman, Marcella, who decided to stay at home with her son, who was a toddler then, and felt that she could provide some form of income for her little family by taking care of our daughter, which was wonderful at the time. But it quickly dawned on us that this wasn't sustainable. I just couldn't do it. We were a young family coming into the workforce, and we had choices to make: a place to live. We had no vehicle. A place to live, or not, or to pay childcare. And so it worked out for us for a period of time, but we had to let her go because we just could not afford it. And our daughter was just amazing, a beautiful, bright little girl who was raised well with Marcella and her son. And after about 6 months, unfortunately, we couldn't afford it. We just could not do it. We ended up having to make some decisions to move our family back in with my parents, who became her caretaker. It was her grandma and grandparents that were taking care of her. And of course, that for me, that was so opportune, not just because they were the people I trusted the most, because it was free. Because it was free, and it allowed us to get back on our feet again and to try to make our way back to a life on our own, for our own, providing for our own family. When my daughter became a mom, this mom helped to go out to Arizona. She had children out there, and during the summer and any time in between when she needed me, I would provide care for her children. She had 4 little ones, and it was next to impossible to imagine how she and her husband would be able to afford childcare. They were making ends meet, just paying the mortgage, getting food in, and so on. And they also had some public assistance as well. When I think about the childcare at the time that would have been required for a family with 4 children, I just can't imagine what they must have been going through. But they did it like we all do. We all somehow made our way through there, and we now have grown children. And many of you nodding your heads also know that we're continuing to do the same now, and we'll help out where we can. So the opportunity that I want to touch on, I think that women and people, men as well, who want to go into this career now have an opportunity to become even better providers of care. Parents feel comfortable knowing that these individuals will be trained, will become professionals if they choose to be. And the providers themselves to know that they can have a living wage and be able to provide for their own families. This is so remarkable in so many ways. So I am thrilled to be here to represent my colleagues at the table. I pledge my support to continue this as well to the best of my ability, to do what I can to keep this continuing. And I look forward to the future. I can't wait to see what the results are going to be, what results will come from this. Secretary, thank you so much. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Senator Padilla, and every advocate, everyone who's promoted this through the years, thank you for hanging in there with all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Little. And we would love to hear from everyone in the room, but then we'd be here all day. So we're going to let our fabulous Lieutenant Governor close us out and then open it up to questions.
Great. Thank you, Secretary, and Governor, thank you for the opportunity to be here right next to you in this monumental announcement. But I first have to say that, Dan, I'm really jealous of that Zia cup that you have right there. You're going to have to tell me where you got that. That's pretty impressive. But as I was here reflecting and listening to everyone speak and listening to the governor, I go back to January 1st, 2019. It was a snowy day. We were at the El Dorado Hotel. We were about to take the stage to get sworn into office. And I'll never forget when the governor turned to me and said, I've included the Early Childhood Learning Department in my state address. And I knew at that moment that things were going to shift for the state of New Mexico. And with the work of Mariana Padilla, who is now our Secretary of Public Education Department, Senator Padilla, many others who made that a reality by getting it through the legislature and the signature from the governor. That allowed us the opportunity to bring in our amazing Cabinet Secretary, Gruginski, that has really shared a vision of how we can be a leader across this country. And one of the things that impressed me most about the governor when we started working together, traveling around the state.
It's just one thing?
Was the governor's approach that we were going to be second to none, that we were going to take pride in being first in things that we do. And that's what today is. As of November 1st, we will be a state that the rest of the country is going to follow and say, how do we do that? I travel all around the country and talk about our success that we've been able to do with early childhood education. And it was unheard of how we can get to providing support for 100% poverty level. I'm so excited to be able to travel around and share how we did it now that we're the first in the country for universal child care. And I want to get a little personal on this because it is something that's extremely meaningful to me. Because as a state senator, I remember getting a phone call, Governor, from a student of mine. He was a student, Regan Aguirre, who I knew as a child. Grew up, got a job, was there in Grant County. But getting a call from him and his wife, Faith, and they were sharing that they couldn't make it because of the cost of childcare and that they were going to have to move out of state. If there was any programs that we can have in place that would assist them. And at the time, we didn't have the political will, we didn't have the resources, we were at 0% reserves. We weren't able to get out of a recession. And we weren't able to do that. And so today they live in another state, which is difficult because it's such a close family that they had a large family, but they're no longer able to be here. in New Mexico. But because of the work that you've done, Governor, she shared about the Early Childhood Education Trust Fund. And what that means is that the $320 million initial investment, the $300 million that we moved forward with, now sits at $10 billion. That's forward thinking. That's the vision that the governor has provided to make sure that we were going to follow. And when we see the discussions that have taken place of how we were able to move with our public education system to once where our educators were the lowest paid in the region, now to being the highest and pushing other states to do even better than us, which works because the better that we can do as a state, as a country, the better we're all off. And when we see that our universal access to higher education, with the fulfillment of the promise of the lottery scholarship and the fulfillment of the opportunity scholarship, where our higher education trust fund, under the work of Secretary Rodriguez, now sits at nearly $1 billion. That's a promise that we're making. And oftentimes in politics, you'll get the pushback that nothing's free. Nothing's free. And granted, we thank the taxpayers of the state of New Mexico. Granted, with the oil and gas surplus and other diversification of our economy, we're able to sit now at over 30% reserves to provide and recognize that what we're investing in under the governor's leadership it's not an expenditure, it's an investment. It's an investment in our families, it's an investment in our children, it's an investment in our economy, it's an investment in our healthcare system. And as we speak today, Governor, some local students who graduated from where I'm from in Civil High School chose to stay in the state of New Mexico, get their education here at the University of New Mexico. Joe and Marissa Rivera. Marissa, as we speak right now, is doing her rotations for her residency. It's going on again being an MD. And I'm excited for the opportunity to call Joe and Marissa today and say, we are providing universal access to childcare to help them make a decision to stay right here and practice right here in the state of New Mexico. That is the New Mexico way, as true as Dan's cup. It's the bright yellow and red Zia that we have right there. That is who we are as New Mexicans. That we're not going to look at things as an expenditure, but as an investment right back in the people of the state. Governor, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the work you've done. And what a wonderful celebration that this is. That's going to continue to bear so much fruit that we won't even get an opportunity to see, Governor.
Oh, well, thanks for that.
So we're proud of it.
Dagger right to my heart. It is valuable to end with that. You know, I have the best lieutenant governor. You can't make him mad, and God knows I've tried. It's usually on accident, but he just keeps working, and he really, this is his wheelhouse. He's been incredibly involved in directing our resources and requests. That's how it should work. I don't think it works quite as well in a lot of states. That's the benefit of being a small state, where I'm sure our families have crossed paths in any number of ways over the last couple 100 years, and that's valuable. But these building blocks are really important, and another governor could take it all away. Or another governor can make it even better. And, you know, we just passed the 2-year anniversary. We just lost my former boss, Governor Bill Richardson. And I can tell you unequivocally there were educational outcomes that he was really frustrated by not achieving. But he was named, I believe, the Education Governor of the Year by a national organization, because they were really working on, back then, and we didn't have full-day kindergarten. We didn't have a way to pay for full-day kindergarten. There was a lot of debate about how much we were going to invest in a cradle-to-career education system, but he was leaning in before most governors around the country because it's expensive. We're willing to talk about it. There's no doubt that this senator was influenced by that, and there's no doubt that this governor is influenced by that kind of vision. My hope is, as we watch elections take hold around the country, that our congressional candidates are talking about these investments, or gubernatorial candidates are talking about these investments, and then right here at home, that our own candidates for elected office are talking about these investments and the future of all New Mexico families. So thank you for that. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay.
We should have cake or something.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a few questions. Let's start with you, Dan.
Governor, I have 3 questions. The first one is, what happened to your arm?
What are you talking about?
2, forgive me if I missed this, but what is the price tag and how are we going to pay for it? 3, Senator Padilla said that this is another example of taking New Mexico children seriously, yet we just lost our CYFD secretary and had a number of children who were part of CYFD that unfortunately passed away. So can you talk?
Yeah, let's do that last one first. I
But
mean,
if you can tell New Mexicans what we are doing as it relates to
yeah,
CYFD.
absolutely, and
that's-
I'm gonna have you guys even go back to the state address in January before the legislature. You know, I know it's always disconcerting when we have folks move through state government. They move through. I was a secretary of 2 different departments. I had predecessors and folks after me. That's normal. Teresa Casados was our former, she just retired, CYFD secretary, was my boss in the Richardson administration. We have a long, very, very close relationship. It's a great place for me to be able to thank her. There are departments that are much harder than others to run because the risks are so much higher. That one is probably the highest risk in the state. It's tough. And I hope that New Mexicans remember, I will, to give her a great deal of gratitude and thanks for just taking it on. Here's what she accomplished. She's been wanting to retire, and I don't know why Howie told her she couldn't. And easier for me if people don't think about their own families and lives. So, and I don't think she'd mind if I shared all of this. She's a full-time live-in caregiver for her mother. I know what that's like. 2, she's nearly a full-time caregiver and leader for her grandchildren, on top of children, youth, and families. And she could have retired a decade. She's been retired before. She's got, I don't know how many years of service, far more than I do, and I have plenty to retire my own self. 2, what I asked her to do from January to now so that she could prepare for retirement is to bring in financial auditors. That was in my state of the state. The state auditor's been in, and Maximus, a private company, has also been going over the finances, particularly looking at federal investments that we may not have fully utilized. What I know to date, not completed, is that we have not under-realized federal investments as a general rule, which we've been saying, so mark number 1. 2, I promised to bring in companies that would do the professional programmatic evaluation and set the course for the next year. They're all in and doing their evaluations, and we would contract with New Mexico firms like, or organizations like the Foster Care Alliance to be the resource entity for foster families, which is an area that we haven't quite done as well as we would like to. And I think these 2 legislators would agree with that. So that's in place. And moving forward. We brought in another DC national expert that Teresa brought in, Brenda Donaldson, who is engaged in taking all of the advice from the management companies and making sure it can get implemented in our current department. And we have a data group that is in there changing the way in which we utilize and capture data. It's only about 200 years old, and it's a legacy system. I might have exaggerated, but barely. It's time to go in to the 21st century, and we're on pace to be the first state to go into a new data collection system. The more that we know, the better we can perform. Last thing, fewer children in CYFD, safer children. That means that we have more stable families. This investment is really that effort to get to child well-being. Daniel, we got a ways to go in CYFD, and the changes we've made to CARA, I think, are also proving to have the right kind of impact. For a pediatrician, the area we struggle the most here is drug-exposed babies in a family of addiction who have resources but aren't required to utilize them. And when you're in the throes of addiction, you can't make good decisions. And so we have a lot of risk embedded in that design. We still do. So we're going to keep at it. And the deputy secretary Val Sandoval is the acting secretary, and we will bring forward to all of my public partners all of the information. It's all public. We'll be shining a light to show you just exactly what these consultants are telling us. The one thing I haven't quite done yet is, see if you remember, what was the third thing I said I would do? Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, you're supposed to hold me accountable. Well, that's for you. No, we want to make sure we also have a complaint, right, firm. I called it a firm. I called it the Child Protection Authority. Do you remember?
Right, yep.
I'm not doing that. That will also get done outside of the department. As many access points to know where we are or aren't in children, youth, and families is important. Teresa's got a good effort, but we haven't quite fully realized that, because to your point, I need resources to do it all, so I have to be a bit creative. All right, the next thing is, I'm gonna go to the resources. We got, how much out of the last legislative session, Secretary?
Specifically for childcare, the whole agency
The
budget?
whole agency budget.
Just shy of $1 billion, 995 million.
All right, and for childcare itself?
463 million?
Okay, but that was the total,
For
the increases
26.
here is about
113 million
Thank you.
more, thank you.
So 113 million more, last legislative session over our current budget. I wanted 225 million more. So expect a healthy request out of the legislature. I've got good champions. We have it, we should use it, because this is the stabilization factor, so that's how I know we can afford it. So we will keep doing that, and I already forgot one question. Oh, my arm. You know, I'm 66, Daniel, your parts give out. So when your parts give out, you get new parts. And I started with the right arm, and I'm doing very well, and I'll be out of a sling in 3 weeks.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. But you ought to see the other guy.
Let's go to Morgan Lee, the Associated Press.
Hi, good morning. Could you please explain the changes to eligibility for healthcare assistance? Is this free universal, early child care? Who still pays, how much?
Can I do it first? Morgan? I know you're looking at the secretary. You know, I saw that, because they know who the expert is. That's a good thing. It's available free, no copays, no cost sharing to anyone. Now, she's gonna give you a caveat, and I don't really like it, but I'll tell you what it is. The federal design says if you're a stay-at-home parent or grandparent, that universal child care isn't available only because the notion is you're not reaching out for child care. Now, I want everything, so we're gonna start with meeting the federal design,
Allowable activities.
allowable activities, so working or going to school. But what I want is, I'd like the secretary to give me options for respite and vacations and any number of things that, you know, parents really need. So anyone in the current child care system, right, I'm at work, I'm going to school, is gonna now have access, we have to go through rulemaking, hurry that up, please.
Yes.
Will not be paying anything for child care assistance in the state of New Mexico. Today, nobody pays copays. And if you're at 400% or lower of the federal poverty line, you already don't pay for child care, which is the biggest benefit in America. And now I'm just eroding and eliminating all of those barriers, so that the family that I gave you, a family of 3 at 133,000 is just above that 400% of poverty. So it's still out of reach for far too many New Mexicans are cobbling together a living, helping us work in essential areas but can't afford child care.
Do you know how many people more or less that weren't receiving assistance now will be eligible?
Between 12 and 13,000. I know these numbers. Go ahead.
And how many, that's families, and how many?
That's
Children.
kids.
Children.
Jessica Barone.
To piggyback off of Daniel's question, some lawmakers have talked to us saying that it's time to take away the governor's power to appoint a CYFD secretary, saying that we need more qualified leaders to be given the state of the agency. What are your thoughts on that? And also, these same lawmakers have said, you know, why is it CYFD and juvenile crime and immigration are part of this special session as topics.
Well, and that's what legislators, I mean, no disrespect to my favorite legislators here, that's what they say about every appointment I make. They say it about every board and commission until the board and commission can't do medical licenses timely, and then they want me to take it over, but I don't have the statutory authority. It's a debate, and they're good debates. I mean, we ought to have a rigorous, robust debate. We have that debate about regents every single legislative session. We have that debate about everyone that has to be confirmed. Remember, the legislature has confirmed every one of these secretaries. So it's an easy place to go. I don't mind that they are critical and want to push us hard. Child well-being in a state that had the highest childhood poverty when I became governor, with a CYFD program that has always been, I think, 30 years, really tough, following a federal design for child welfare that is terrible, that makes no sense whatsoever, and state laws that allow for no interventions that are mandatory. I know that Senator Padilla wants to say something, and I appreciate that. These don't work, and you know that every state has gone through a consent decree, every state has been sued, every state, that is not an excuse. It shows that this country doesn't know what to do about at-risk families and poor states like this one in a tougher spot. I contend that we continue to make progress. It's a tough place to make progress and not eradicate all of the risk, because when you don't, we have terrible outcomes that no one can tolerate. So I appreciate the criticism. I disagree with that. The more layers you put in, the more difficult it is to make the changes that you need when you need to make them. And so I feel confident where we are, but I appreciate that they want us to really focus there where we are. Senator.
Thank you, Governor. I wanted to respond to this one also. First of all, I think you should go to those specific legislators and ask them what their ideas are. It's one thing to complain, it's one thing to throw whatever on the table, but you have to have specific proposals on what you're actually going to do. So I think that's just can't be lost on this. I get very frustrated with my colleagues when they just jump up and down and point at everyone but themselves. You need to come with actual proposals. So I want to make sure that that's called out. Second, between the governor and I don't know if you remember that late evening, we were running all over the Santa Fe trying to get back over here to get the bills done. So I mean, there were probably, I don't know how many were introduced on CYFD reform this year. I personally had, I think, 9 or 11 of them, and they were primarily proposals brought forward by the governor. So I don't want it to be lost that this administration hasn't been trying new things. We did bring a major piece of legislation across the table this year that had several pieces to it, but one of them is how are we going to deal with the infant who is addicted, and we know that. It's a very unpopular thing to do. It's a very unfriendly, unhappy, unpleasant thing to do, but we got that done this year. And so I just wanted to say that it's not like we're not doing anything at all. I mean, you have to keep trying things until you find that solution that works for the people of New Mexico, and that's exactly what we tried to do here. I think of those 11 or 14 total bills, like I said, I think I had 9 of them total, turned into a Christmas tree bill. That's what we like to call it in the legislature. I don't know if you remember.
I don't like to
Lieutenant Governor, you were there. And we ended up bringing across some very significant pieces this year. So I don't want it to be lost that major things happened just this year alone. And then on leadership, I love Teresa Casados. I just want to make a comment publicly on that.
So do I.
I can't think of, there are some very hard jobs in government, the 2 people to my left here, 3 people to my left here, but that had to have been one of the hardest jobs in state government that's ever been created. And so I want to thank her publicly for the work that she did. I did carry her confirmation. I got to know her very, very well, and I think she did some very wonderful things. I think that we should also be focused on the employees of CYFD as well. When things aren't working in one direction or the other, they need to have an ability to come forward and see leadership and be able to address those issues as well. So I feel like instead of pointing at people, let's bring solutions forward. That's what I try to do. I know that's what this governor tries to do. The secretaries of these departments. We can't. I grew up in this system myself. That's why I'm so kind of emotional about it. I have to tell you that when I was in this system, every county did their own thing. And so now we have this unified way of looking at this. And I think that we should continue to look at different ways of managing the child protective services here in New Mexico. It doesn't mean that the solution that we have at the moment is going to work in 20 years from now. So we need to constantly be improving it.
Right, and I might do one quick more thing. Secretary Casado's got all of those pieces up. And we've changed, even though the legislature delayed any changes for an entire year. And that was not Secretary Padilla's design, but that got, I mean, so in terms of willing to take a risk, they delayed it for a year. Because I don't think anyone knows exactly, because poverty and addiction are really tough issues to resolve. They don't happen overnight. And it's been underfunded every single year, by the likes of which are $40 and $50 million since 2019. Pretty tough to run a department under those circumstances and to hire enough people to do the work. Again, present company excluded, and that means I have to do a better job with my policymakers in order to get that over the finish line. So it's a great way to end. Let's get that 40 or 50 million for CYFD and put a lot of these high-risk issues to bed.
Thanks, Governor. We'll take two more questions. Let's go to Dan Boyd, and then we'll go to Austin Fisher to wrap it up.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I figured you'd appreciate, I got the mug at a baseball tournament in Ruidoso, so I appreciate that. But, I wanted to ask, I know you've been working toward universal child care for a number of years, I mean, even during the pandemic. And one issue I recall still struggling with is these kind of child care deserts in rural parts of New Mexico. I was wondering if you could touch on that and how this initiative will kind of address people who might not have easy access in Albuquerque or Santa Fe to facilities.
Thank you, Dan. And we have completed, being data-driven as we are, childcare supply and demand study, so we know exactly where those deserts are. And we have a three-pronged approach. We want to expand access through registered homes, which are people caring for 4 children or more, so 1,000 of those. We want to have more licensed homes, and we want to have about 55 to 60 centers. And that's where the capital comes in. We're releasing an application in a week for the low-interest loan that Senator Bergman's brought last session. That has almost 13 million. We've got an ask for 20 million more for 27 because we see the interest. We're also talking to industry leaders who are very interested in this, and also school superintendents. Santa Fe is a great example of taking it on and building a child care center, keeping their staff in place, being able to have that continuum of care and learning. We see it in Eunice, we're seeing it in Carlsbad. So I think it's an all-in strategy from industry business leaders, our schools, our community-based providers who are sitting here in this room. Sandra, who's just opened an infant toddler center in Albuquerque. We know Albuquerque, Bernalillo, Sandoval, Santa Fe, Lee, and Eddy County are our highest need counties. But the state as a whole and our tribal, our sovereign nations, and they all have proposals before the legislature as well to build early childhood centers. And so we're hopeful that that also will be received very well.
And that just all that legislation would allow them to apply for loans or for funding to set up these?
Correct. Community-based, for-profit and nonprofit and tribal entities can apply for that funding.
No wrong door, and particularly that leaning in to a family or house with a neighbor, because that's the way we're doing caregiving with New Mexicare. I'm not going to be able to recruit certified nurse aides and personal care assistants to Mosquero, and yet I've got aging populations that need that care. So we have a program called New Mexicare, which provides resources to pay that neighbor so you can get care right there in your community. Same kind of a concept, training, right? Licensed, so you create this productive infrastructure, but really leaning into, this is a state that can't have a one-size-fits-all, and quite frankly, no state should do that. You should meet the needs of the families where they are to the highest degree that you can. That's what this secretary is proposing.
That's an excellent point, just making sure that families have choices in those different settings, as the governor so well said.
Austin.
I have a question for Dr. Help. You're saying, this is a first of its kind program in the nation. I'm wondering, are there any other states in the U.S. that are close to what New Mexico is trying to do here?
There are other states that have put in place school readiness measures and are trying to use the school readiness measure to improve things in their specific school districts and early childhood program. But no place has the kind of comprehensive approach. There are places moving forward. The state of Illinois has just set up an early childhood department like you have here, so they're moving in that direction. So there are bits and pieces around the country. There's momentum. People have been working on all the parts, but you guys have put it all together. And the blueprint that connects it all up, and understanding how you play this kind of 3D chess at all the child level, family level, community level, they're all trying to move in that direction. And I think what you're doing here and putting all the pieces in place and connecting them up hasn't been done in other places. And so, you know, I'm in California. We have something called First Five, which is a tobacco tax that gives the state several $100 million. We have First Five commissions in all of our counties. So there's lots of stuff going on, but a lot of it is still just throwing money at problems and not the kind of overall strategy. And we don't have, even though we've had a 20-year investment or more, 25-year investment now in First Five and billions of dollars, they don't have a statewide data system. So they can't actually tell if they're, what direction things are going. And it's a big problem for the state because our current governor is throwing money at things and trying to do the best they can, but they can't measure what the outcomes are over time. So you're at a real advantage.
And Dan, could I just make a correction? The registered family friend and neighbor care, that's 4 or less. No, my staff said I said 4 or more, so just don't.
Oh, see, you have staff that help you. Mike just lets me go. No one says anything, and then Dan writes, governor was incorrect. So, good for you.
We did have one last question.
Yes, just details on the special session coming up.
Yes, I think the legislature's poised to give me everything I want. Oh, in fact, you asked me about that, and I forgot. I proposed a number of things. You know, look, it's not lost on me that we're just a year before Howie and I, both bittersweet, did the very best we could, excited about so many things we got accomplished. But there's always more to do. You should feel like there was always more to do, and I have no doubt we're going to feel like that. So I wanted a road package. I thought that we should do something about immigrant detention. I don't believe in for-profit prisons of any kind or detention centers. I thought we should lean into that. And I thought we should do the medical compacts as an example to really sort of set in motion. We need to do more for our healthcare system. We need to be doing more for immigrant and immigrant families who are being literally attacked by the federal government. And we better do a road package which brings in a number of other economic opportunities. But this is a negotiation. And I negotiated with Democratic leaders in both the Senate and the House, and that is not to say they are against any of those proposals. They prefer to spend more time in the interim really looking at them, including the last one that I got asked about, which is looking at juvenile crime. I think there's actually some good momentum by our Democratic leaders in that space. And for the folks who are not part of that debate in New Mexico, the Lieutenant Governor and I are leaning in heavily for accountability to deal with our public safety challenges. And I have yet to make the case, even though every DA, every sheriff, every police chief in the state is, I think, with us on our public safety agenda, including doing something about juvenile crime and juvenile detention. But we are going to do the bulk of that in the 30-day session. I will say, I think I can say this, they have agreed, your leadership, to the same effort of the 60-day session, within or before the halfway mark. The key issues for healthcare, crime, and roads gets delivered to us, and that commitment was enough, certainly for me to say, we will not have a proclamation that everybody in the legislature hasn't agreed to going in. So it's not a reflection that they're unwilling to debate and give us good ideas, but we've split it between the special and the general. And for viewers, the real issue in the special session is I can't let folks who are currently on Medicaid have a lapse in coverage and have more folks who are uninsured. I cannot have people on the private market have a doubling of their premiums between now and January, and we cannot let our hospitals falter. We have to make sure that the Rural Healthcare Delivery Fund, that Medicaid coverage, and also food benefits, to whatever degree we can afford, we have to stop that kind of bludgeoning by the federal government and the lack of federal resources that are going to come to every state in America. New Mexico's also going to lead in providing protections to the families who are depending on us for coverage. That's going to get done in October, and I thank the legislature for their leadership in that regard.
Thanks, Governor. We got to wrap it up there. Thanks for coming, everybody.
All right, champagne, who brought the champagne?